Welcome to the next episode of the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. I am Marta, and as always, thank you for joining me for another conversation exploring the spiritual, the deeply human, and everything in between. Today, I want to take you somewhere. It is the 1st of November in Poland, and it is cold. The kind of cold that gets into your hands and stays there. It gets dark early, and instead of staying home where it is warm, everybody is leaving. The roads out of the cities are full. Whole families are driving to the cemeteries, and they are carrying candles, not one or two, boxes of them. By nightfall, the graveyards are not dark places, they are seas of light. Thousands of small flames on every grave, as far as you can see, and the breath of all the living rising into the cold air above them. Children are there too. Nobody hides it from them. You stand at the grave of someone you love, you light a candle, and you stay a while. That is the lesson, and you learn it without anyone ever saying it out loud. You go towards the dead. You do not run from them. I grew up with this. To me, it was simply what you did in November. It took me years and a degree in anthropology to understand two things. The first is that what I had been doing since I was a child is something most of the modern world has lost. And the second is stranger and quieter. And it is what this whole episode is really about. Because there is a silence hidden inside all of that candlelight. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. So let me build it for you slowly. The 1st of November in Poland is Wszystkich Świętych, All Saints' Day. The whole country slows and turns toward the cemeteries. The 2nd of November is the Zaduszki, All Souls, the day given entirely to the dead. The word comes from dusza, which simply means soul. So Zaduszki is quite literally the day of the souls. The bond is built right into the language. And the candle has its own name, znicz, the grave light, the small flame you leave burning on the stone. That is the thing that turns the cemeteries into oceans of fire on a cold night. All of this looks completely Catholic. All saints, all souls, prayers for the loved ones in spirit, but underneath it, much older, is something the church didn't invent and at first didn't want. It is called Dziady. The word means the forefathers, the old ones, the ancestors, and Dziady was a pre Christian rite. And the old descriptions of it are startling because they say plainly what I have spent my whole life trying to explain to people. That makes me emotional. The heart of Dziady was, in the ethnographer's own words, the communion of the living with the dead, not mourning them, being in relationship with them. It was held twice a year, in the spring and again at the turn of October and November. At the moment, people believed the boundary between the worlds grew thin and the dead came home. And, and the way they welcomed them is the most tender thing I know. They lit fires not to frighten anything away, but to warm the souls who were thought to arrive cold from the underworld and to light the path so they could find their way back to the house. They set out food, and not just any food. Kasha, the grain held most sacred, eggs for rebirth, honey for the sweetness that rises out of the tragedy of death. They left it out so the dead could eat. And then there were the rules. And this is where it stops being folklore and becomes something that breaks my heart a little because of how gentle it is. On that night, you didn't clear the table after supper so that the souls could feed in peace. You didn't pour water out of the window in case a soul was standing just outside and you drenched them. You didn't bang your fist on the table or stand up too suddenly in case you frightened them. You didn't sue, you didn't spin in case accidentally stitched or bound a soul needed to be free to return. Sit with that for a moment. These were not people performing a quaint custom. These were people who genuinely believed their grandmother was in the room, hungry and cold and tired from a long journey, and who arranged the entire evening around her comfort. The dead were not gone, they were guests. They were asked for help, for protection, for a good harvest, for guidance. You could speak to them, and you believed they could answer. And every rite needs someone to lead it. In Dziady, that person was called the Guślarz. The Guślarz was not a priest, he was a village figure, and it was he who stood in the dark and called the spirits in. Our greatest poet, Adam Mickiewicz, built an entire drama around this, also called Dziady. And in it, the Guślarz stands in a country chapel and summons the souls of those who, after death, couldn't loosen their bonds to the earth. He calls them and they come and they speak. I need you to hold that image because he is the center of everything I'm about to say. A man who is not a priest opening the door between the living and the dead in public for his whole community. He's the original of what people now call a medium. He's the original of me. And here is the turn. When Christianity came to Poland, this was not blessed, it was forbidden. The people who led these rites were persecuted. Dziady didn't die quietly, it survived in private, in the villages furthest from the churches, passed down in secret. And for centuries, the clergy kept writing it down in their records and dismissing it as superstition, which only proves how stubbornly people kept doing it. In the end, the church did what institutions do with something they cannot kill. It absorbed it. It laid all saints and all souls gently over the top. It kept the candles, it kept the praying for souls, it kept almost all of it. But it cut out one thing. It kept the speaking and it removed the listening. This is the silence I told you about. And now I have to be fair because a real conversation gives the other side its strongest form. And the church's position is old and serious and not stupid. The teaching could not be clearer. The Catechism rejects every form of divination. It names specifically the conjuring up of the dead, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and what it calls recurs to mediums. And it gives reasons. It says these things conceal a grasping for power and that they betray the trust and the honor we owe to God alone. Beneath that sits a line thousands of years old from Deuteronomy, forbidding anyone who seeks oracles from the dead. And there is one more argument, and I'll not wave it away because it is partly my own. The church warns that the grieving are vulnerable and that what answers a desperate heart may not be the loved one it longs for. I have spent my life warning people about exactly that, about false comfort, about those who would take money from a mother who has lost a child and tell her anything she wants to hear. You have to be very careful because unfortunately there are scammers in this industry. So when the church says be careful, the grieving can be exploited, I don't argue. I agree. But here is where I cannot follow because Catholicism is soaked in the dead. And I've also heard some people, they do not like using the word the dead. I also prefer to say loved ones in spirit. But at the same time, we talk about the Day of the Dead in Mexico as well. So that's another story and a digression. Anyway, we pray for the souls in purgatory by name for years. We ask the saints who are the holy dead to intercede for us, to carry our prayers, to help us. We light the snitch. We keep an entire day zaduszki for the souls. There's even an old Polish belief that on All Souls, the dead gather inside the church at midnight for a mass said by a priest who has himself died. The dead are not absent from this faith. They are everywhere in it. So the church draws a line, and it is a very fine line. You may ask a saint to pray for you. You may pray for a soul, but you may not seek anything back. You may speak to the dead. You may not listen. You may address them. They must stay silent. You may light the candle. You may not wait for the answer. And that is the whole thing. That is what I want to hold up to the light, because once you see it, you cannot stop seeing it. We built an entire civilization around staying close to our loved ones in spirit. And then we were told the closeness may only travel in one direction. So I have to ask the question this whole episode has been walking towards. Who decided that? Who decided that the dead may be spoken to, but must never speak back? And why? The anthropologist in me has an answer, and it is not a comfortable one. It is about the door. Every institution that claims to hold the sacred must control the door to it. It must be the one who stands in the threshold and decides who passes and who doesn't. And so the person who can open that door without permission, the one who can hear that directly with no priest and no church and no ritual that the institution owns, that person is a threat. Not because she's wicked, because she's unlicensed. That is who the Guślarz was. That is the real reason Dziady was forbidden and not merely frowned upon. It was not crushed because it failed. It was crushed because it worked. And it worked without anyone's permission. The village didn't need the institution in order to reach its own loved ones in spirit. And there is nothing an institution fears more than discovering it is not necessary. There is even a clue hidden in the language. The word dziady didn't only mean the ancestors, it also meant the wandering beggars, the old men who went from house to house, and the two meanings were not an accident because those beggars were seen as go betweens, messengers who carry a prayer to the other side. People fed them in exchange for prayers for their dead. So Poland didn't have one doorway to the dead. It had doorways everywhere, in the cemetery, at the table, in the stranger at the gate. The whole culture was full of unofficial messengers. And one by one, the official faith tried to close them until only the priest was left holding the key. The medium, which is what people call me now, is simply the Guślarz again, the same ancient role surfacing once more in a century that believed it had finally stamped it out. The doorkeeper the village never quite stopped needing. And I think most of all about the ordinary person caught in the middle of all this. Maybe it is you, the person who lights a candle every November and means it with their whole heart, who was raised in the church and loves it, and who also feels quietly when no one is watching a pull toward the mother or the father or the child they lost, who wonders if it is allowed, who feels a flicker of guilt for even wanting it. That person is standing exactly where Poland has stood for 1,000 years, on a fault line, folk culture under their feet, whispering, "Go to your loved ones in spirit." Doctrine over their head, answering only through us. I'm not here to take anyone's faith. Many of you listening hold yours dearly, and I would never lie a finger on that. I'm here to ask one honest question, and then I'm going to let you sit with it. The church itself teaches that love doesn't end at death, that the soul goes on, that we will see them again. And if that is true, if love really does outlast the body, then tell me why the longing to hear from the people we love is treated as rebellion. Because from where I'm standing, it is not rebellion at all. It is the most natural thing a grieving heart has ever done. It is love still reaching out. Love that simply never got the message that it was supposed to stop. You were never strange for wanting it. You come from people who set a place at the table and left the food and spoke to their dead by candlelight and were not ashamed of any of it. The door is far older than the rule that closed it. And learning to feel your own people again gently, quietly for yourself is not defiance, it is a homecoming. If you'd like a soft place to begin, I made a short audio for exactly this. It's free. It is called Your First Conversation with Spirit, and you will find it at martathemedium.com/gift. But even if you never touch a single thing of mine, I want you to carry the question out of here with you. They told us we could speak to our dead, but never listen. And Poland listened anyway for 1,000 years in private, by candlelight, far from the church doors. Maybe that was never superstition at all. Maybe it was only ever love refusing to be silenced. So light a candle this week. And if something in you wants to say their name out loud, say it. You were always allowed. If today's episode resonated with you, I would be so grateful if you could follow the podcast, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need to hear it. It really helps these conversations reach the people they are meant to reach. I'm sending everyone so much love. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye, everyone.